Salvete discipuli. I wanted to take a moment and make this extra video for you to give you a little bit of extra help as you are working through this week with the Domina module. So I'm going to let you read this and find out. Of course, this is page 1. Page 2 is just a reminder of what you need to know and sort of how to work your way through the module. I want to bring your attention to some of these vocabulary words. Remember that you can hover over them to get the definitions or to get more information. This particular module is all about nouns. So we're going to be learning some of these words, and I'm just going to go over these with you quickly. A noun is the same definition as in English. It's person, place, or thing. In Latin, a noun will belong to a declension, which is a family. If you remember in the last module, we talked about a family or a conjugation of verbs. So when you're talking about a group of verbs that are similar and get put in a category together, excuse me, you're talking about a conjugation. When you talk about a noun group that has similarities or a family of nouns, you're going to call that a declension. In Latin, nouns have gender. Every single noun will be either masculine, feminine, or neuter. And that's something that you want to learn as you learn the word. We'll talk about that in just a minute. The number would be singular and plural, and that should be something that's familiar to you from the verbs. So it applies to nouns as well. You can have 1 cat or 5 cats. Case is shows the function of the noun in the sentence. Sometimes the noun might be a subject, sometimes it might be a direct object, sometimes it might be an object of a preposition. And so in Latin we have cases. They all have different names, and they show how a noun functions in a sentence. And as we go through the modules, we'll be learning all of the different cases. We're going to learn a few cases in this module. First one is nominative. And if you look, the word nominative looks a lot like nominate, and maybe a little even like noun or naming. This is the case used for the subject of a sentence or for the predicate nominative. And if you studied English grammar, and I know you all have, you've talked about a predicate nominative. That's the noun that comes after a linking verb, like the verb esse that we studied before, the irregular linking verb. The base of the noun is what we try to determine, and it's really what that particular word or noun means. You form it by dropping the base or dropping the ending of the genitive ending from the noun. An accusative is the case that is frequently used as the direct object of a sentence. Predicate nominative we just talked about. Vocative is calling someone by name, also called direct address. An inflection is the ending that we put on the end of this base up here. And I'm going to talk more about that. Let's go ahead and look at the next. Okay. Now on the next page, this is page 3. A noun is, like I said, defined as a person, place, or thing. And if you look at this particular sentence right here, we have plaustrum moet. Plaustrum is a wagon, and moet looks like move. That's what it means. It means move. And we've got the T ending that we studied from the previous module. Lets us know that we're looking at a present tense verb. It's third person singular, and the subject could be he or she or it could be another noun. In the sentences and the examples that we've had in the past, we talked about decamus ambulat. So decamus was the subject. So in this case, the wagon is the subject. The wagon moves. So remember that declension is a family of nouns. They have gender, they have number, and they have case. In Latin, you have 5 different declensions, or 5 different groups, or 5 different families. Now, a noun can belong to only one declension, and your job is to be able to determine which declension or which family it belongs to. And there is a way to tell. If you look across here, you're going to see, in this little illustration here, you're going to see what you see when you look in a Latin dictionary, when you look up a word. You're going to see the nominative form, you're going to see the genitive form, the gender, which is either masculine, feminine, or neuter, and then you're going to see what the definition of, and that's really what the English meaning of the word is. Now, let me remind you that as you're taking your quizzes, you're going to usually see the words masculine, feminine, and neuter abbreviated to M, F, or N. But when you take your quizzes or when you take the test, the testing program expects you to go ahead and spell those words out and actually type masculine, feminine, neuter. So make sure that you do that. So let's look at how we would determine the declension of a noun. And you can click on this icon below, but I'm going to go ahead and sort of talk you through this and get a little introduction to you. Now, just like I told you up here, there are 5 declensions in Latin, but for our purposes in Latin 1, we're only going to really concentrate on declensions 1, 2, and 3. So those are the ones we need to make sure that we can distinguish. The way that you do that, if you look at this little chart right here, you have an example from the first declension, the second declension, and the third declension. The first declension is rida, ridai, and it says here that it's feminine. It means carriage, and the genitive singular is ae. If you look back here at the Latin noun, you see 2 forms listed, rida, ridai. That ridai, that second form there, is the genitive form. So if you take off the ae, you're going to have the base of the noun, which would be R-A-E-D, okay? Ride, okay? And that lets you know that you're looking at a first declension noun. So when you look at a noun and you see the endings A, A-E, A would be the nominative form, A-E, the I, would be the genitive form. You know that you drop that I, the A-E, off to get the base, and from that, you'll add on those other endings, which would be the inflection. You're adding on the different endings of the word to show how that word is used in a sentence. Let's look at the second declension. Carus, cari, masculine, cart. Okay, and if you notice here, we have nominative form, then we have the genitive form. The genitive singular ending, if it's second declension, is the letter I. So when you drop off the letter I, you're left with C-A-R-R. That's the base of the noun. And that lets you know that you're looking at a second declension noun. Third declension is a little bit trickier because there is no, when you look at the nominative form, the very first entry that you would see in a dictionary, there is no one set rule that when you see that ending, you can recognize that that word is a third declension word. It's a huge declension. There's an awful lot of nouns that come from the third declension. So what you want to do is you want to recognize the nominative form, but you want to make sure that you know the genitive form, because a lot of times there are spelling changes with the third declension forms, and when there are spelling changes, you're going to see it in that second form, that genitive form. So once again, you need to know that the genitive singular ending is is. So if you drop off the is, you're going to be left with itiner, itiner. Not iter, but itiner. That's going to be the base of the noun. So once again, you always go to the second part, which is the genitive form. You're going to drop the endings, and you need to know that the first declension genitive singular ending is AE. Second declension genitive singular ending is the letter I. And the third declension genitive ending is IS. And there is a little game here that you can play, and you're going to match these up, and I'll do maybe one or two of them with you. If you remember that the ending here is AE, tells you that it's first declension, so this word pala, palai, you would drop to the first declension. USI, if you look up here, you say aha, that's second declension. And rida, ridai, that was from our group right there, so you're going to drop that one in there. Just a note about the second declension, notice this word right here, plaustrum, plaustri. It does not match the US up here, and we're going to talk more about that later. But look at the genitive form. It ends in an I, and the rule is at second declension, it ends in an I. So that is a second declension noun. Dominus, that fits the pattern. Okay, so we're going to drop it there. Now, senator, senatoris. If you look up here to the chart, you don't see an OR. But if you look at the genitive form, you do see an IS, and you can look at the chart here or the chart here and know that you're looking at a third declension. Okay, so I won't finish that. I'm going to go on to the next part. This is where you would practice your vocabulary words. Remember that your vocabulary is over here. This is the handout that you want to fill out for the Domina Dictionary and Derivatives quiz. Make sure that you download the handout or print it out, fill it out completely, and use it to take the quiz when you're ready to take the quiz. And it even says down here that you need to take the quiz as a daily grade. So you would take that after you fill out your handout. If you have questions about the handout, please feel free to go ahead and email that to me. You can download this handout, fill it out. If you're not sure that you're on the right track with what you're doing, you certainly can contact me through the Georgia Virtual School email account. And you can attach that and say, hey, can you look over this? I really have some questions about how to do part of whatever. And I won't give you just the answers, but I'll have a dialogue with you, maybe back and forth through email to help you figure that out. Okay, moving along to the next page. I'll come up here and move along. Okay. The nominative case, and once again, I'm going to skip this. I'll let you read all of these things because you do need to know this information, but I want to go through the nominative form. Okay, so the nominative ending, what you want to know is the nominative singular and the nominative plural forms are A, AE. This is for the first declension. So if you remember, we just talked about how when you're looking at a noun, you're going to see a dictionary entry that has an A, AE ending, and that's the nominative form and the genitive singular form. Both of those forms were singular back there. In this chart, notice the AE looks just like the genitive form, so you need to remember that you will see that AE ending both in the nominative plural and in the genitive singular form that we saw in the other page. Second declension singular nominative form can end in US, and most of them do, but there are some that end in either ER or IR. So once again, US is the most common, and ER or IR, there are a few that end in that. Second declension plural will end in the letter I, and once again, you should already recognize that form as looking like the genitive singular as well. So notice that this form looks like the genitive singular for the first declension. This one looks like the genitive singular for the second declension. Now, third declension singular, remember I told you there was no set ending to the noun to let you know, and that's what the notes say here. But you could always recognize that you were looking at third declension by the genitive singular form, which was IS. In this case, the nominative plural form for the third declension is ES. And that actually looks like something plural in English, so that can maybe help you remember that. Okay, now there are some neuter nouns, and neuter nouns appear in the second and third, but not in the first declension. The first declension is almost exclusively feminine. There are a few masculine nouns that you might see. Second declension could be masculine, up here could be neuter. Third declension could be masculine, could be feminine, and can be neuter. So let's look at the neuter endings. If it's a neuter noun in the second declension, nominative singular form ends in a UM, and the second declension plural form ends in an A. If it's a third declension noun, remember there's no set ending that we can look at, but you can tell you're looking at third declension by that dictionary entry that would, the second form would end in IS, that genitive singular form, and the third declension plural ends in A. Notice that neuter endings in the plural are the same. And here's a place where you can practice. And I'm going to move you ahead to, this is talking about clothing, so you do want to read about clothing. And then there's a quick explanation of the accusative. The accusative is used for direct objects. Notice that you see the letter A when you're looking at the nominative and accusative of the first declension. You see use a lot, okay, in the second declension. And the third declension, you see the letters E. So that might be sort of a clue to help you remember it. But these are listed here, so you want to be memorizing these endings and making them fit. And then here's the place where you can practice the accusative. The accusative is used mostly for the direct object of a sentence. So for example, if I were to say, I write a letter, letter would be in the accusative case because it's the direct object. And that's how those would work. Now, you have a discussion passage about clothing, but you also have this clothes daily grade. And I want to show you where that is. That's over here. There's a handout. And for that handout, let me open that up. Hopefully it will open up here for me.